Hi guys, I'm here to do a paper 1 essay outlining practice for IB English A Learn and Lead. As you can see, the given text is from 2021 May exam, and then I chose to do the written one. By the way, I would love to emphasize the fact that the way that I outlined this text essay is just one of the samples. So do not take this as the one and only or the best way to structure the essay. Yeah, then long rambling short, here we go. What is the way that we are supposed to start to analyze this text? First, you're supposed to read the given information from the very beginning of the text, such as this article is from where and who wrote it and what does it focus on, whatever given. And then next, you don't just start to read. Next thing you have to do is to check the guiding question. As you can see, you can find the guiding question from the very end of this text. What does it say? How is the narrative structure used to explore ideas about identity? Which means this guiding question is going to determine your essay structure, surely. So, which means if I summarize the main content of this text, the writer herself is a twin, and she has been through multiple ups and downs growing up as a twin, to describe what is it like to be a twin, So to actually read this text, you're supposed to focus on how to structure your essay, how to find out 3 different points according to the given guiding questions, such as it is asking about the narrative structure. Then what is the main distinctive features of the narrative structure within this text? So if given the assumption that you guys already have read the article thoroughly and ready to analyze the distinctive features of this text, then I will start to do the outlining. Here we go. All right, what I mean by outlining a paper 1 essay is that we basically summarize what you are actually going to write down for your paper 1 essay. Yeah, and basically, if I read the introduction the student wrote, I must be able to know whether or not the student has understood the text completely, So for the given text that we have just checked, present means where does the article come from? So we must be able to summarize the origin of the article. So we can say, this is an article written by Tommy O'Bra on BuzzFeed news website. And given the understanding that you guys have had, what is the target audience that you can assume? Target audience would be definitely the English speakers, especially the readers who are interested in informative knowledge about culture, because the news website itself is focusing on cultural content, and especially those who are going to read the article from the beginning to the end, you can assume that they must be somehow interested in the impact of being a twin on one's identity. Yeah. And the purpose would be to share the author's own experience living as a twin, expressing its hardships sometimes, and also the precious points of being a twin, via sharing her own anecdotes. Sometimes we can somehow also understand that she wants to indirectly criticize the rigid, at the same time misjudged ideas set by the society on twins. We can find that, certainly. Next, thesis, which is the most important sentence that shows how you're going to structure the following body paragraphs. So if your teacher or the examiner is reading your thesis, then they must be able to understand how the rest of the essay is going to be composed. Done. Body 1. As we already have talked, as I said, the guiding question for this text is very specific, and it asks us to focus on narrative structure. In other words, we need to focus on the way that the story, her own anecdote, is moving on. So one of the ways that we can structure the essay according to the guiding question is to follow the way that story is developing. So I would name the body 1's main point as the stage of exposition. And the main ideas that focusing on the exposition would be this. It conveys the idea that in childhood years, the narrator and her twin had similar identities due to their similar appearances, and even personalities and interests. So it wasn't the time that they started to develop the differences, or they started to develop the independent identities, right? So that's the main point for the body one. And there are multiple literary devices or other techniques that highlight or support the depiction of the exposition stage. So first of all, I would say, obviously, the writer's description, very specific description of her childhood using a personal anecdote. Next, there are multiple visual imageries that we have checked. Also, there is a very interesting juxtaposition between the society's depiction or society's understanding toward twins and the idea that she has had herself. So these are the at least three points that we can support as evidences to demonstrate the exposition stage. How does the story develop? I would name the body 2's main point as the rising action, because this is the stage where the twin is starting to this is the stage where the twin is starting to experience the change throughout the adolescent years, right? So the article implies that during the twins' adolescent years, the deviation happens. So they are attempting to discover their own independence, and that they are getting much more different. So the main idea would be, during adolescent years, the twins' identities deviated, become themselves, and formed resistance against the societal norms. And then the techniques that we can support the stage would be first, diction. I love to use the word untwinning that she used to emphasize the state. They're getting untwinned, you know. And next evidence would be obviously the anaphora, that she's emphasizing the different ways that they are being deviated from first to go, second to go, third to go. And repetition, yes, and she continuously used the expression of, oh, depicting something, and using the same phrase to somehow express the vivid emotional disturbance, I guess. Lastly, there is a metaphor coming up. So talk about the emotional damage or emotional disturbance that the twin is experiencing. It's going to be about the time when they become both adults, and then the deviation and the conflicts or some disturbances or the separation between them have been somehow resolved in a mature way. So I would name the last main point as the resolution stage. Since the article suggests that as the author and the twin reach to the adulthood, they could reunite through mutual love despite the differences in their identities. At the same time, they understand the preciousness of being twin, and then also they are somehow appreciate the individual's existence, you know. So I can say the main idea is they start to appreciate one another, not as just one of the twins, but as independent individual. So lots of emotive languages have been used to support the stage, such as like the words attachment, sentiment, horrifying. And we could also find some compromising tone in here, especially the tone, since she wanted to highlight the state of their balanced relationship. You know, her twin is living her own life, and she herself lives her own life as a proper adult. And at the same time, they keep the nice relationship of one another, rather than just like feeling distanced or feeling resistant to one another, you know. And also there is a very symbolic repetition of a praise to demonstrate the complete different attitudes that the twin is having towards being a twin, such as in the beginning, they just being understood as twin, and they didn't really resist it because they didn't know what is being like to be actual individual, not only as a twin. However, this time at the end of the stage, at the end of the story, they started to accept that, okay, we came, however, we would not be understood as the way that my father or society would try to understand us. We are individual, at the same time, we are loving family. Lastly, the diction, the repetition of the word we, the subject word we, would highlight the resolved relationship between the twin. And lastly, in conclusion, we are supposed to point out some limitations that the text is having when it comes to boost the reader's understanding. So I put two potential limitations of the text, such as first one is about the image, you know, such as there is an image, but we don't really know the background knowledge or what is the, we haven't got, but the thing is, if we haven't got any information of the meaning of the statues or what does it actually symbolize or etc, etc, etc. So it would have been much better if there could be any reference of the image itself to boost the understanding of the readers. At the same time, I also wanted to point out the fact that it is somehow vague to know the writer herself's response towards the sorter bias. Yes. And then after you finish the count analysis, you can rephrase the thesis that you wrote at the introduction in different words. Then you can finish the outlining. It's a bit long process, but thank you so much for being focused this much far. And I will see you with the next videos. Bye.